In the beginning of the film, we see Simon James, whom we will call only Simon in the future, who is going to his office by train in the morning, and then a man tells him to get up from his place, while the whole box was empty. But still Simon quietly gets up from there without saying anything. After which Simon sees a girl named Hannah, who used to work with Simon in his office, and Simon likes her. Now when the train stops after this, Simon is unable to get off on time because some people were loading their luggage, and as soon as he gets off, his bag is stuck in it due to the train's door being closed at the same time. After which, when Simon reaches the office, he sees that his supplementary ID is not working, so the guard there stops him, while Simon has been working here for the past 7 years. Still, the guard talks to Simon very strongly. Simon tells him that his bag is stuck in the train's door, due to which his ID has also been lost. But because now his supplementary ID was not working, so the guard gives him a pass through which he can enter the office. Looking at the atmosphere of the place, it seemed as if not humans, but robots work here. And then Simon's senior Papadopoulos comes there, who tells Simon to teach his daughter Melanie to work there, which Simon has to agree even if he does not want to. And during this time we know from the talks of Simon and Papadopoulos that this company belongs to a man named Colonel. At the same time, Simon tries to meet Hannah on the pretext of flowing here, which does the work of operating a big photocopy machine here. But here another woman makes fun of Simon in front of Hannah. Now after this, Simon goes to meet his mother, who is admitted in a hospital, and then he reaches his home from there, where after watching TV for a while, Simon sees in the flat in front of his flat with the help of a binocular, where we see Hannah, meaning that Simon is living in this place only because of Hannah, so that he can see her every day. But here, Hannah tears a picture she made and throws it in the trash, which as soon as she sees it, Simon immediately picks up the pieces of that torn picture and somehow puts it in his room and puts it in a diary. After which, he starts seeing Hannah again with the help of a binocular, and then he sees a man on Hannah's floor who was standing outside the window with a binocular and looking at Simon. Before that, Simon gets scared, but when he sees again, the binocular man looks at Simon and shakes his hand, in response to which Simon also shakes his hand. And as soon as he does this, the man jumps down from there, which Simon is surprised to see. Now in the next scene, we find out that the man who had just jumped has died. And in the meantime, Simon meets the local detective there, who tells Simon that if that man had jumped a little to his right, he would have been hurt a lot. But he would not have died. And saying this, the detectives leave from there, after which Hannah comes to Simon and asks him why this man took his life. On which Simon says that loneliness kills a man. After which, Hannah and Simon go to a restaurant together, where Hannah tells Simon that she knew that man because he used to follow Hannah everywhere. After which, last night, he somehow dared to tell Hannah that he loves her, on which Hannah said that she does not love her and also stops her from following her. After which she took her life today, which Hannah is responsible for somewhere. Therefore, Hannah lied to Simon that she does not know that man, but now seeing Hannah crying, Simon changes the topic and asks her for the office party, whether she will come to it or not, which was going to happen tomorrow. In response to which Hannah says that she will definitely come and will also wait for her to come. After which Simon happily reaches the party the next day. Then his ID is not working there because it is a supplementary ID. He is not allowed to enter the party. Now Simon looks inside through a broken door from the outside, where he sees Hannah standing alone, which was probably waiting for Simon. Therefore, Simon tries to sneak into the party, and as soon as he starts moving towards Hannah, the same guard catches him and takes him out, during which Simon tries to explain to him a lot, but the guard does not listen to him. And then this scene is cut here. Then, in the next scene, we see Simon in the office, where he tries to talk to Hannah, but despite being very brave, he is unable to say anything, and then he gets busy in his work, during which Papadopoulos introduces everyone to a new employee who has just joined the office, and his name is James Simon, whom we will call James in the future, and his face resembles Simon. But no one present there pays any attention to this. This is why he tries to keep an eye on James all day, And while leaving the office, James himself goes to the same place with Simon, where Simon used to go often, during which we see that James was completely different from Simon, as if Simon was hesitating to give his order there. While on the other hand, James says his words without hesitation, after which the two go to a club, where Simon bumps into a man. Then James punches that man and runs away with Simon, in which Simon has a lot of fun. Now in the next conversation, James tells Simon that sometimes he feels as if he is not present for this world, and everyone treats him as if he is not in this world. Along with GC, Simon also tells James about Hannah, that he loves her. After which the next morning Simon meets James in the office, because now somewhere or the other they had become friends. Where this time at James's behest, Simon is not stopped by the guard. After which James tells Simon to give an important test in his place in the office, which every employee has to give. And during this time he goes to train Melanie as Simon instead of him, because their faces are exactly the same, so no one will be able to know that the two have changed places. Although Simon did not want to do this, but he could not stop James for this, after which we see Simon giving a test instead of James. On the other hand, James flirts with Melanie as Simon during this time, and now with the passing of time, James also starts getting all his office work done from Simon. But then one day, Hannah meets Simon and tells him to talk to James for him, because she has started liking him, which Simon finds very bad. But still he tells James all this. Now, because James also knew that Simon loves Hannah, so he tells Simon to meet Hannah in his place. But even after becoming James, Simon is not able to talk to Hannah, so he goes to the washroom where James was hiding, from which Simon tells that he is not able to talk to him. So now James himself goes to Hannah, from which now Simon is watching. And then after a while, we see that James has also cast a spell on Hannah, and now the relationship between the two has started again, which Simon was quietly watching sadly. But this time it was about Hannah. So the next day he refuses to do all this with Hannah instead of James, and he also refuses to do the rest of his office work. On which James tells Simon that if he does not do all this, then he will show his and Melanie's picture to Papadopoulos, after seeing which he will understand that this is Simon. So now Simon does not say anything to James. After this, we see that James has shifted to the flat above Hannah, where he is with Melanie, and Simon was also watching all this, so he calls Hannah and calls her up as James himself, and Hannah reaches there and sees James with Melanie, so she breaks her relationship with James. Now the next day, James forcibly takes the keys to his flat from Simon so that he can go there with Melanie or any other girl, because he is afraid of Hannah coming to his flat. And even though he does not want Simon, he has to give him the keys, because James was still blackmailing him with the photo thing. Now after a while, Simon feels that James has snatched everything from him. So one day he tries to tell everything to Papadopoulos, but no one believes him. And then Simon is fired from his job. Here Hannah also started hating Simon because she felt that James and Simon were friends, so Simon has given James the keys to his flat. So after losing, Simon decides to take his life. But before that he tries to see Hannah for the last time from his flat, where he sees that Hannah is unconscious in his room, so he immediately takes Hannah to the hospital without delay, where he finds out that Hannah has tried to commit suicide by taking sleeping pills, which also caused her miscarriage, which means that Hannah was pregnant, which was obviously James's child. Now after this, when Simon comes to drop Hannah home, she tells Simon that she tried to kill herself by gathering courage with great difficulty, but she did not let this happen, so now she should die. And saying this, she goes to her room, where she sees that she has Simon's coat, in whose pocket she gets the gift that Simon had ever taken for her. And she also gets the same diary with which Simon used to attach his pictures. Now seeing this, Hannah understands that Simon loved her very much, but here, Simon finds out about her mother's death, who was being buried right now. That's why Simon runs to his mother's funeral, where James had already reached him, and seeing him there, Simon loses himself, so he punches James hard, which causes blood to flow from James's nose. But with this, Simon's nose also starts bleeding, after which a man hits Simon very hard, which makes him unconscious there too. And when he wakes up, seeing his nose injury, he thinks of something in his mind, after which he runs to his flat, where he ties James's hand from the bed while he is sleeping, and then he jumps on Hannah's upper floor and stands up, during which James also sees him from a distance, who sees that Simon jumps from there after shaking his hand towards James. And seeing this, Hannah comes running to Simon. Then we see Hannah and Colonel in the ambulance with Simon, and on the other side we see James also dead, but Simon was still alive, to which Colonel asks, "Is there anyone else like you?" Now, if we talk about this movie, then according to me, Simon and James were the same person. The only difference was that James is the form of Simon that Simon always wanted to be. And he gave birth to James in himself to solve all the problems, which is the opposite form of him. And somewhere or the other, Simon knew that whatever he was doing in the form of James was wrong. And in the end, we saw that when Simon was injured, James was also injured, which makes it clear that they were the same person. Even at the end of the movie, when Simon jumps down, we can see James at the same time, who was lying on the ground covered with blood, during which Simon felt Colonel and Hannah with him. So there, James was lying like a corpse. And here, the difference between the soul and the body has been shown. Rest, Simon was dead, who was a good person from inside, but his loneliness gave birth to James. However, what do you have to think about its ending? Do tell me in the comments. And that's it in today's video.